future of insurance is here. Bringing together some of the best minds from around the world, Deloitte provides a breadth of market insights and proactive services to insurers worldwide. Tapping into their nuanced understanding of the insurance industry, they help insurers navigate the increasingly complex landscape and get to the heart of their business challenges, helping to find opportunities for growth. In this session, they will present the key trends driving technology transformation in the insurance industry and how InsurTech is reshaping the landscape. Please welcome Deloitte.
Good morning, Barcelona. It's so great to be here with you. And quite frankly, it is exciting to see that our industry is cool enough to have smoke machines now. So for those of us who have been in the industry for a while, we can go back home and tell our friends and colleagues and our children that it's not only Taylor Swift, but the insurance industry as well. All joking aside, in the next 30 minutes, we'd like to just go through a couple of trends and perspectives on digital transformation. Digital transformation is a phrase that's overused and perhaps dropped as often as Gen AI and ChatGPT. But we're going to double click into it over the next 30 minutes and provide some perspectives that are really valuable regardless of whether you're an insurer, an InsurTech, a startup, or sit somewhere within our ecosystem. First, my name is Arun Prasad. I am a partner within Deloitte's global insurance practice that I have the fortune of leading a great team of individuals globally. I'm based out of the US, and it's exciting to be here in Europe, and joined here by Mark Patterson, my colleague and friend from the UK, who also leads our P&C sector. So let me start by setting some context around, before you talk about transformation, what is the digital age? We sit there and use the word digital so often. It's digital this or digital that. Let's really decompose the phrase and understand the elements of the age itself. There's no doubt that customer expectations are at the foundation of the digital age. And we as an industry want to believe that our industry is very structured and has some very rigid processes. Yes, for compliance purposes, but let's be clear that customer engagement, whether that be a broker or an end policy holder, that is a component of the digital age. Relationships are in real time, and this conference is a perfect testament to the importance of relationships regardless of where you sit in the ecosystem or the insurance life cycle. It's not just on rating, it's not just in claims, it's across the entire life cycle. But let's make sure that we realize that the choices that this new age creates are relatively infinite. There was a time that we could not imagine that insurance would be embedded, that insurance would be provided by car manufacturers or phone manufacturers. But change is constant. And that constant level of change is represented by, if this conference was held just 9 months ago, we perhaps would never talk about ChatGPT. But in a period of 5 days, the astronomical rise and change and impact of that technology alone was tremendous. As a technologist, I'm always really reinforced by the fact that technology impacts every single thing that we do. It is no longer that technology is a sidecar, it is the car. It is an element that's embedded into everything, and that, therefore, understanding how it's embedded into insurance, and I use the word embedded, is critical to the success of the industry as a whole. So, one thing I want you to take away from this digital age is we get very focused, because every single one of you has either some mobile phone in their hand, that the customer experience is what is digital. But that's a fallacy. And over the next few minutes, we want to discuss why it's a lot broader than just the customer experience. Mark?
To maybe start that up, we could have a slide that has 100 different trends, disruptions, and other pieces that are happening in the market. We've just picked on a couple here, order of magnitude, to set the scene of these changes, opportunities or challenges, are not just about that customer experience. Again, customer experience is critical, but it talks about the whole organization. Whether it be the OEMs entering in the insurance market. When you think about how big the motor market is, 740 billion globally is what it is, and the OEMs are coming into it. As an insurance industry, whether it be an insurtech or an insurer, responding to that is fundamentally a digital challenge, but a digital challenge at all layers within the organization. How are you adapting your products quicker? How are you pairing up or competing with the OEMs? How are you picking which path you're going to go through? There was a speaker earlier who I think I'm going to steal a number, said 12 gigs of data coming off the cars. Those types of things is not just about that front-end customer experience, it's about how do you put it in, how do you embed it in there. When you talk about the property market, right? State Farm pulling out a California home. Again, take into context, California has got a population of 30 million, that's half the size of the UK, and they're saying they're going to exit that market due to fires and other challenges. That disruption is happening around the globe, here in Europe, across Asia, different issues. Sometimes it's flooding, and many insurers are questioning, do they pull out? I think that's wrong. And what I mean that's wrong is the lens they're looking at is purely the underwriter lens. Right? The underwriter's going, the numbers don't add up, and that's obviously a critical. Versus across the organization, how is it that you're going, well, hold on a second, maybe we've got a new product here. Maybe we've got a sidecar product that's a parametric-driven one, and we have it as add-ons, right? And we carve out different pieces of that product. But when you look at the response there, it's not just about driving it from an underwriting perspective, it's across the product design, and how are you then also going to explain that to the customer via a digital means in there? And so it's end-to-end across that. I think we're also seeing parts of the organization fundamentally realizing they need to be digital too. I pick on commercial insurance. We frequently at these conferences a lot of time talk about the small business side, but I'm also talking about the large and more complex pieces in there. The brokers that are interacting with you, as well as the end customers, are expecting to tap to people who are digital natives, who understand digital. They're expecting to have digital experiences through there. The data that needs to support those products, we're moving past sort of the old Lloyd's world of putting the stamp on the paper and binding the policy. That itself needs to be digitized across there. And the last one that I pick on before we start talking about how do you embed this through the organization is AI. Of course, I can't come to a conference and not mention AI, but that's a really interesting one across the organization of how it's going to challenge and create opportunities. There's a great insurtech here out there that's focused on insuring AI. Right? So there's a whole new product set. As an organization, if you don't understand digital all the way through again, how are you going to go and come up with a product? How are you going to go and underwrite price and support claims on trying to insure AI models? That potentially could be as big as the cyber market out there. Of course, a lot of us are talking here today about how do you embed AI into the organization. But again, this is not then just about that customer layer, the classic iceberg picture that we all presented a couple years ago, talking about the top layer of it. It's all about the next layers in there and how do you embed that across the organization.
Thanks, Mark. So, digital transformation. So we've set the stage of the digital age and the opportunity within our industry. But let's look at what is the transformation. It is not solely technology. And the Venn diagram on this slide reinforces what you've heard a couple times this morning in various speeches, other talks as well, is it is a talent dynamic. And ultimately appreciating that your underwriters, your product designers, everyone in your organization needs to adapt to the age, not just the technology organization that's working with someone out on that floor. So that element of appreciating the talent and human capital piece of this is equally important for the organization. But technology, we need to realize that our industry, 330 years old of the Lloyd's quotes this morning, there's a lot of technology that's not digital. And there's an element of that that says it's not all digital immediately. The Venn diagram does not have digital across all of it because we need to appreciate that there are insurance platforms and technologies over the last 50 plus years that are part of the ecosystem. But you cannot forget about the process. And the element here is, sure, AI can speed up certain things, technology can speed different elements, but at the end of the day, there are still elements of underwriting that need to be well established. There are regulatory processes that are very important to the success of organization, and therefore realizing that digital is at that intersection point across people, process, and technology is critical to the success of every organization, not just the carriers. So when we get an opportunity to speak to some of our clients in the marketplace, we really start the conversation around organizational foundations. And the reason we start there is, at the end of the day, it is a people change effort. And I'm not a change management expert, so my vocabulary in this space may not be exactly correct. But the key element I focus on is, how do you make the organization more digitally agile? How do you change the silos of an organization to embrace that technology? You need change agents, and you need to establish a culture within the organization that enables success. Sure, many of you may say, that's great. My CEO or the CEO of the client I'm attempting to sell to has a vision and has already sold that we will be digitally native, or like Domino's Pizza in the US, we are a technology company first that happens to work in pizzas. The key element is appreciating how to translate that into execution. So the transformation strategy and execution capabilities are about changing the muscle memory of an organization from creating solutions as well as products at a digital pace rather than a previous pace. And it is not to be understated that the complexity of our regulated product, we're not e-commerce companies. We realize that. We as an industry have regulations that the motor market, as Mark went through, is utterly complex. Let's not understate that transformation capability is important to meeting success. But a lot of organizations will check the box by saying that they've done some element of digital, they've created some level of a new digital interface to connect with brokers or agents, or maybe they've used an insurtech. But the question that all organizations in our industry have to answer is, are we better serving the end consumer? The end policy holder, is he or she better protected? Because we as an industry are protecting society. And therefore, that customer centricity, while it's on the outside of this wheel, is really the center component of success. Lastly, external collaboration and engagement. Our industry has always been someone's a carrier, someone's a reinsurer. We use some kind of distribution model, and then we have some policyholder on the outside of that. That's not the only collaboration I'm talking about. I'm talking about the collaboration across all of the participants at this conference. So whether you are an insurtech startup, you're working as a carrier, or you're working as a venture capital, as a PE firm, all of these components are important components of the insurance ecosystem. And we need to establish that it's collaboration, not just disruption. Because there's benefits that each of us can bring to help the industry get better. And as long as we realize that that collaboration is valuable and drives additional value for all participants, it's success. Mark?
So in preparation for this presentation, Arun and I got our teams to go and map out against all the insurers that we work with, which is most of the large globals and lots of the large regionals, of where they are on this digital journey. And we've had this scale previously that goes from exploring to being digital is how we map it out. And I think if we were here about 3-4 years ago, we would have had people either on that end of exploring or just going into doing. And so my hypothesis going into that was, well, great. I bet we're not all at being, but I thought we'd be a little bit more at becoming. But we're not. And so where we are is where some organizations are further ahead, but on average, a lot of them are still stuck in this doing space, right? So what we mean in this is sort of endless loop of doing digital things. And Arun was referencing some of them earlier, right? So they're going to go and launch a new app, right? It's a big project. They do 6 months. They fire it off into the market, and they get it out there. They're going to create a new broker connectivity method. Again, big 6, 12-month project. They do it, and then they go back to how they're working. What they're not doing as part of the doing piece there is actually changing the inherent organization, right? How are you changing to what Arun was referencing, how everyone operates, right? How all of those processes are designed. You picked on regulation, and that's always one of my favorite. What usually also happens in those programs is they launch that great digital app, or they're about to launch it, someone goes, oh, phone up the reg guys, make sure we're okay. And what ends up happening is the reg guys show up and they're like, no, you're not okay. You're doing A, B, C, and D wrong. And what immediately happens is someone says, no problem. I'm going to go hire 2 new analysts. They're going to sit there and they're going to look at all this manual data feed, highlight this, highlight that. That is not becoming digital, right? That is you've launched something and then everything you've put in behind there is still, hamsters and wheels, or pick on your favorite analogy, versus actually operating in a model that is profoundly different, where everyone in the organization is integrated and thinking across it in a digital mindset, where technology is embedded in there. When you encounter those problems that, back in my day we always called them workarounds, you don't just throw bodies at them, you solve them via another digital solution or enhance that existing digital solution. When you think of a big tech company, when they run into that type of reg problem, they don't go and say, oh, let's go hire more people in our reg team. They go, let's go hire a few more engineers so we can figure out how we code through that, right? How do we develop through that? But that's everyone's mindset. That doesn't mean engineers are the solution, but it's how everyone's kind of approaching that problem. So what I want to end on is, Arun, I want to just hit on a couple of orthodoxies on the next slide that we think people need to challenge. I'm not going to read through all of these, but I want to pick on 2 or 3 here on ways that organizations need to think differently and operate and approach some of these transformations differently. First of all, is pick on the general people one, right? We've even loosely used the word, or the term digital native up here on stage. It's wrong to think that you need to go and fire your whole organization and go hire a whole new set of digital natives that just graduated in the past 5 years. That is not what we mean by that. That is the wrong approach. Because if you take that approach, you're never going to get there, first of all, right? What it is how do you infuse that and make those people who aren't digital native become digital native, right? And there's lots of easy ways that organizations, I feel, are missing on how to do that. I'm working on a big digital transformation with a large insurer right now, and they're going, how are we going to staff this team, Mark? We need these people who are digital. I don't have anyone in the organization. I said, what are you talking about? That person in the call center who's been doing first notice of lost claims for the past 6 months right out of school, I guarantee they think we're all idiots on how we're doing this. They're thinking that this needs to be done in a completely different digital way. Let's pull that person out and go partner them with your chief claims officer, right? Let's go do that partnership across the board. And so in any of those roles, so that everyone is infused into that thinking of going, this is actually how people expect it to occur. Another one on here that I like is, people don't want to talk to robots. That's why they call. Okay, what ends up happening is you as an organization end up having a philosophical argument if people like chatbots or not. That is a pointless argument. This isn't for me to preach up here that chatbots are the future. It's talking about what is you're actually trying to solve. A digital organization that is being digital, changes that argument and starts saying, well, what we're solving for is customers and agents want information extremely fast in an easy to understand way, and they want to be able to get that anywhere at any time. Now, the answer may or may not be a chatbot. I'm not going to, again, argue about the advantages and disadvantages of that. But that's where the organization needs to change how they're thinking, right? Actually go back to those root problems. Because again, a digital organization, that's how they're thinking about that. They're not just talking about and arguing about this customer experience layer up there, right? Again, critical. But that's not just where the argument is. It's going, what is the root problem we're trying to solve? Because when you start to unpick that problem, you're going to realize that you need that digital capability and data and technology throughout all of the organization. The last one, and then I'll see if Arun wants to end on another one, is, just a few areas of my business are touched by digital. I really, really, really hope that some of the messages Arun and I have said has hopefully broken that down. But again, you go into a lot of organizations and they still sit in these orthodoxies of going, again, we pick on the claims one of going, oh, people really, we don't need digital in claims, only happens to 1 in 10 customers, let's not go do our investment in there. Well, that's fundamentally wrong, because as soon as you say you're not going to go and digitize that area, you then have that creeps out across the organization, right? So, okay, we're going to do all of our claims via a call center. I'm just sort of picking on an example, right? Oh, well, now that means your whole HR model needs to be focused on how do I have a large call center. My real estate model potentially is how do I have a big call center located, distributed across there. Your IT systems are now focused on just serving, up very basic information to a call center person and letting them handle that challenge. You then need to put controls in place of what are those call center people saying and doing and stuff like that. When you start to isolate it and say, we're only going to focus on one part of the organization and only have some parts of it that are impacted, it quickly spreads. So that's what I'm really trying to get at is I'm sure this audience, you're all here today, believe that digital belongs across the insurance value chain. But when we go and execute it, we don't end up doing that, and we don't realize that how that bleeds and spreads when you take those shortcuts across the organization and you quickly end up back to doing a bit of digital versus being digital. Arun, is there one more orthodox you want to throw in there before we close up?
Thanks, Mark. I think the last thought is that legacy systems make this really hard to innovate. And look, we have to appreciate the environment that we're in around innovation, as well as the macroeconomic environment. Using the word transformation in a lot of cases almost is a negative word because it's suddenly an 8-digit effort or a 9-digit effort that no one can appreciate. The question is, being digital is about appreciating the stepping stone projects that you may take that are not 7 or 8 digits of replacing the legacy platforms, but really encapsulating steps that help you get to that end solution over time. Now, many of you could say, well, until I remove that iceberg and remove all of that heavy weight, I'm going to be challenged significantly. Well, the element here is we need to figure out solutions that are a little more incremental in nature that help showcase the value of digital to the end consumer as well as to the broader organization. Because otherwise, it is a failed program, a failed large, massive implementation that is seen as the big T transformation that sometimes clouds the real opportunity that we each have. So again, we wanted to share a couple of these perspectives. We really appreciate all of you joining us this morning, and thank you again.